All right, we're recording. All right, so tonight it is, what is it, April 20th today? We are moving up into our spirits now, away from the body, closer to God. So we're on the throat, and I started doing some study, going back over. I re-listened to the audio of Anatomy of the Spirit, and then I reread the chapter of Anatomy of the Spirit. I did a quick little browse through soul contracts to see if there was anything there that kind of, jumped out. And I have not done, I'm just going to speak my truth right now about power versus force. I just did not do my due diligence with that book. And this chakra is so much about power that if you guys, all of you, Casey, I know, like, you know this book really well, and Brittany and Cindy, if you guys do too, if you would just kind of do me a favor and keep that in the back of your mind, that if there are some poignant things about power, in power versus force, I think, I am really wishing that I would have done a better job, like, getting through that book. And oh, sorry, I just started echoing. Do you guys hear an echo?
No.
Can you guys all mute for a second? And then it's like coming back to me. I don't know why. Okay, that's better. All right, I don't know, like, all of a sudden it just started echoing. It was fine for a while, but we'll unmute it later, and or just, like, wave at me or whatever. But so yeah, keep that in mind about power if there's anything that kind of comes up for you, like, as we go through this. But anyway, I had made a bunch of notes and kind of had a direction. And then when I was going over everything a couple of hours ago, it's just all kinds of stuff started dropping into my spirit and, like, connecting with each other around this chakra. And I really hope that it's not, like, just for me. Sometimes things happen and you're like, oh my God, but, like, other people don't get the same, like, ahas. But I hope that you do. I don't think I would get them from God if you weren't going to get something out of it. So I'm super excited because I feel a little discombobulated and all over the place, because of all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, like, all these things came up for me that I thought were really, really cool the way it came together. So I want to start with the matrix and just go over some of the basic fundamental things about the throat before we get into, like, the books and the discussion, and just kind of tell you, like, what happened for me today. So the first thing is on the very first page, the very under the translation and meaning for the throat is to purify. And, like, there were some things for me, like, around, like, power and our, our power of choice that really comes in our throat, and, like, speaking our truth. And then there's this idea of purification that is, I was kind of like, I don't really see how they go. But when I was looking at that today, what happened was, have you guys heard Handel's Messiah? Like, at Christmas? No. Okay, so every year, at least I think in the Baptist tradition, but, like, my church especially, we've got, like, this in my church that I went to in Chicago, there's this gigantic historic pipe organ, and it's like in history books, like, it's like gigantic. And there's only so many people that can actually play this organ, like, in the world. And so anyway, every year at Christmas, like a couple weeks before Christmas, Handel's Messiah is performed in my church, and there's an orchestra, and like choirs come together from like all over the city, you know, into my church. And it's this, our sanctuary is like a horseshoe, and it's this like, the acoustics are just bananas. And like, so with the orchestra and like the choirs and stuff, it's just like, it fills the entire, it's the most beautiful thing ever. And that's one of the things that I miss, and I've posted about it before, about like how much I miss, you know, listening to the Messiah. But one of the songs, so it's like a compilation. George Friedrich Handel put together this compilation of all of these songs that he composed, that all basically point to, you know, the Messiah. So it's Jesus. I mean, there's different religions believe that different deities, or, you know, ascended masters were the Messiah. Some people think the Messiah is yet to come. So like all of that aside, there's one of the songs is called "And He Shall Purify." And so as I was looking down through the matrix to see what else jumped out at me, the element for the throat is sound. So I'm like, okay, like now I'm like thinking of like, you know, music and voices. And then it talks about the mantra is hum, but when in the Chakra Bible, it says that you should pronounce it harm, like HARM. And then I am back to this idea of harmony. And so, right, you know, with that in the Bija mantra section of the matrix, where it says hum is the, you know, the mantra, then it's in the note of G, and it says vibration energizes the brain and throat, bringing sweetness and harmony to the voice. So I'm like, it's harm is like the chant, we're talking about harmony, it's the element of sound, and I'm putting it together with this, you know, to purify, with the song that drops in my head from Handel's Messiah. So I look up this song in the Messiah to see what key it's in, and it's in the key of G, which is the key that's associated with the shot. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, like, you guys, this is like the tip of the iceberg. So literally, like, there are so many things that came together around this idea of sound, harmony, voice, the key of G, you know, this particular song. And so I just thought it would be fun. It's only a couple minutes long, but so I pulled it up and I played it. And I mean, talk about harmony. It is heavenly. It is so beautiful. So I just want to play it. And if you would just humor me and close your eyes and listen to it, the words. And so the scripture that every piece that's in this compilation of the Messiah is some sort of biblical scripture from somewhere. Okay. And so this one is actually coming from, just as an FYI, Malachi chapter 3, verse 3. And so the lyrics are, this is another thing. So I'm looking at the lyrics. I want to see exactly what the words are. He will sit as a refiner and purify. This is the scripture, not the song. The lyrics are very close, but he will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. If you look at the yantra for the throat, there is a silver crescent that sits in a white circle. The white circle is to represent the moon. And then there's this silver crescent that, let me read what it says. It says the silver crescent, and again, this is on the chakra matrix under the symbol / yantra place. It says silver crescent is the symbol of cosmic sound, and then in quotes it says nadam, Nadam, representing purity. So I'm like, okay, like we're circling back again to the actual silver crescent that's in the yantra, the picture, you know, symbol of the throat chakra, is silver, and it represents cosmic sound. So when I looked up Nadam, it's actually a Sanskrit word, that means, like it says, it means mystical sound of light, and it represents purity. But nadam is also kind of like interchangeable with om. So when you think about, and then om is I think, right, this is, I don't know, from Casey, I'm trying to remember. I mean, like that's the sound of God, right? Like of when you chant, oh, sorry. Everyone's muted. I'm sorry. I got you unmuted.
John probably knows that better than I do. The only thing I know as far as the meditation is ah is creation. So it's like Wayne Dyer does like the ah in the morning, and then he does om at night for gratitude that all he was able to do and create. So I've always associated awe with creation and om with gratitude, but John might have a more with all the people he's like,
Yeah.
I agree with Casey. R is the sound of creation. I know Om is a universal sound, so it's basically it's in everything. That's my understanding of the Om.
I love it. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to play this for you. If you guys just, close your eyes, it's just a couple of minutes, but it's just so beautiful. Wait, what do you guys see?
naked girls.
Really?
Yeah, well, what are you Googling? That looks like you're looking for like bathing suits or something.
Oh yeah, I was looking at bathing suits. I was like, I was watching porn as well, so I just.
You need a website. Sure. Why not do it yourself? With Wix, create your own professional website.
All right, you guys can hear, right?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. How great was that?
like there's a lot of awe.
You heard a lot of awe.
Mm-hmm. At least that's what I was picking up on.
Yeah. So just a little quickie thing. So back to the lyrics, you know, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. So back in the day, the sons of Levi were priests, and they were like just like preaching the wrong thing, and they were a mess. They were a hot mess. And so like silver back in the day had something on it that was called dross, D-R-O-S-S. And basically when you would purify silver, you would heat it up in a fire. So like they would be like the refiner's fire, would heat it up to the point that it would get the dross away, so that the metal, the, you know, silver was so shiny and bright that it had no impurities in it. And so the scripture, you know, talks about he'll sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi. So these priests, you know, that were off like being crazy, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer, and so that was in the song, offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. So you think it, like I started thinking about all this study with the throat, and what it takes, like, well, and I want to have, you know, discussion about the, you know, honesty and like true, like our own, speaking our own truth and falsehoods, and how often, you know, Carolyn Meese talks about how often we untruth things, and like what that impact is to our spirits, you know, that it like taints us, you know. And I thought about us as like pieces of silver, that as we clear at the throat, you know, chakra, and really pay attention to like honesty and authenticity, and discontinuing to tell these little white lies and untruths, both, I mean, to ourselves and to other people, how much more appropriately we can offer ourselves, you know, like the song says, like to God, in righteousness. Like righteousness, you know, is like free of all of falsehood and untruth. And so I don't know, I just thought that was really cool, like all of those, you know, connections with the yantra, the mantra, you know, the song, the silver, sound, harmony, that all just kind of started, you know, like coming together. I'm going to move on to something else, but like I want to stop and just see if any of you guys have anything to say about any of that. No. Okay. All right. Okay, so Carolyn Meese, when she talks about, and this was in the audio, I think it's pretty early on, where she says, Yahweh took the earth and breathed his breath into it, and from that life was created. And that's really what we're doing in this chakra, is like breathing and speaking life into form. And we think about our lives and like all of the things that we have said, you know, and I mean, obviously this goes directly back to soul contracts with seed thoughts and, you know, things that we say to ourselves that basically creates our life. Just like how, you know, God breathed life into the earth, you know, with his breath. And she does that, you know, like in the audio, does that, you know, like that she like has that image of God breathing like life into form. But how we do that every single day. And when this chakra comes back to the power of choice in every single thing that we do and think, and especially say, you know, I just wanted to have some discussion about like, did anything come up for you guys about like your belief systems, or where, you know, certain beliefs have come from, whether they're about, you know, yourself or the world or God or the universe, and like, you know, really kind of coming back to like this goes internal, like this chakra it's not as much about like us and other people. It's more about like, okay, let's draw in and hear the sound of God, like hear what's being spoken to us and like what we're speaking to ourselves. But I guess I'll just stop right there. I hope I'm coming across okay. I told you, like, I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place. Like I know what I want to say, because there were just so many things in this chakra that I just felt like really kind of molded and came together. But belief systems, choices, what we speak into our lives, what other people may have spoken into your lives. Like, did anything come up for you as far as like moving forward? Will you think differently, or maybe how might you think differently about what you say? And, you know, like the sound, like hearing yourself, like affirmations, you know, I ams. Oh, that was what I was going to say about Yahweh. Back to Carolyn Meese, like Yahweh, the actual meaning of Yahweh is I am. So that was the very first name for God. So he's got all kinds of names, you know, Elohim and a million, like the healer or protector, like they all mean something different. But the first overarching one is I am. And then you think about like, what are our affirmations that we speak, that we say out loud? I am, right? I am. So, okay. I'm just going to stop. Like if anything's coming up for anybody, like just knock yourselves out.
I'll say something. I think, so this is when I first met, basically, Chris, you and Casey, I kept hearing, I am in the process of. I remember being in Atlanta and just keep hearing Casey say, I am in the process of, and hearing her say those things. And it really resonated with me, thinking like, if I start saying those things, maybe it'll then happen. And I started it like right away once I got home. That actually during that weekend, I think I was saying it and starting to say it and saying, I'm in the process of this, and then kept doing that. And all of those things truly changed. Like I actually have either done them or I'm in the process of now doing new things. And it's just incredible. Like the things that you speak, those affirmations, the words that you're putting out into the world, like, and we have talked about, I know Chris, you and I have talked about like money and different things, of saying like, I'm too broke for this. Well, that you're putting that out there. And like, ever since I've started this, like since meeting Casey, basically, like my whole life has changed entirely. Like just by using the words, like literally saying things, and it helps me believe it. Like it really, by saying it out loud, by saying it consistently, it's directing your thoughts basically. And it's insane. It's just the craziest thing ever when you actually start to see it all take place.
Yeah, you just connected the speaking it and believing, like the belief system thing that you're like, when I speak it, like I believe it. And that just like came together. Love that.
And I think, you know, it's when people are ready, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and whatever form or fashion that you're going to connect with somebody. I mean, when people are really hungry and want this knowledge, or they're seeking it, it appears through somebody just by hearing, you know, I'm in the process of. And you know, Jeffrey Combs taught me that too, that to say I'm in the process of, he said, because if you're saying like, I am beautiful, or I am, you know, abundantly wealthy, I am rich, but yet you don't believe it at the subconscious level, you don't truly feel it, then you're almost kind of setting her up for this paradigm of, well, you're a liar. Well, you're a liar. You don't really think that. Why are you lying to yourself? And so he really did, you know, she's the first person that really got me thinking about words, and why I love the I'm in the process of. But I mean, that one CD, that Wayne Dyer, you know, I am that. He does this whole, that beautiful, just that 20-minute verse, it's like, I am that I am. And that's all that there is. And so whatever you want that to be. But for me, it was really being in the healing my back and having a healed back and a healthy back. All illness has a connection to the fifth chakra. because choice is involved in every single detail of our lives, and therefore in every single illness. So that was really resonated for sure a lot with me. But one of my favorite things in the chapter with what she was talking about was truly about the, growing up Catholic and having to go to confession. And it wasn't a beautiful process of calling your spirit back to your truth, or calling spirit back. Confession had nothing to do with that. It was your bad. You did wrong. You need to repent. God is mad at you, and you need to go through Mother Mary. You need to go through the priest. You need to do your Hail Marys, say your Our Father, and repent because you've been bad. And I mean, you think about that kind of paradigm growing up as a little kid, sitting in confession like that. And so then thinking, of that beautiful sacrament where you can call your spirit back, just you and God, and hey, I got off track. I acknowledge it. Not that, horrible shit's going to be happening to you. That's your karma. It's going to come back. And just to really see how she laid it out. For me, that was one of my favorite parts, just about the lighting the white candle and just going to confession with you and your spirit and source. And it doesn't have to be about anything other than just calling it back, recognizing it, learning from it, and just getting back in touch with it, all just through breath and breathing. This chapters and reading it really is just the power of breath, the power of breath. And then when you were talking earlier, just about how many times, and I know we were talking about it the other day too, just, little white lies or, that just come up or can make things easier. I mean, gosh, I know that growing up, just to try to avoid confrontation of my mom and dad, like just the white lies that would go in there, or, where's your mother? What's your mother doing? I mean, just something to ease the peace or pain, of just avoiding things, and just how comfortable one can get with telling white lies. It just becomes so just really being more aware or listening, or, what am I untruthing to myself, just that honest inventory. So I really appreciated this chapter. But what I love, again, in all hers, how she gives those kind of little work things in the back, just about like no judgment and no expectation. I think that, when it talks the greatest act of will in which we can invest our spirits is to choose to live according to these rules. Because when we're making judgments, right, as we're speaking that generally, we're making a judgment, gossiping, talking about somebody, whatever, we're judging the situation for whatever reason. So, which all situations are just how somebody's perceiving it anyways. Two people can experience the exact same situation where it's totally different. And I think too, just not having that expectation, and, not even having to understand why things are happening, and just trusting in the events. But I love the number 1 through 5 that she has on that page 234. That to me is just, and Wayne Dyer, just being somebody that listens to him so much, just had no expectations. And I love what, Tony Robbins says was raise your personal standards of how you conduct yourself, but yet lower your expectations of everybody else around you. Have no expectations on anybody else, and just you raise your standards. And I was thinking back to that, like raising my standards with what? With being more truthful with myself, with having that honesty, with, calling myself back and making those choices. Like that to me is, raising your standard, and then not judging how anybody else is choosing to use their life, their path, their what they find peace in. But that was just I really enjoyed the throat chakra with her. But the confession for sure for me was taking me back to my childhood years of lying to the priest in confession.
And the consequence that she says is waiting for us when we do that every time there's another little one, is that she says it takes away our power. And so like that's, in truth, is where we actually get our power. So it's like every time we chip away and we're untruthing, with it's falsehoods or, little white lie or whatever, like last night, I think it was last night, right, Cindy, where it was like my ex-boyfriend, I invited him to come to the Chicago Super Saturday event, and I completely forgot. He was nowhere on my radar when I went to Chicago. So he sees a video on there texts me and is like, dang, you invited me to the event and then like you come and go and like didn't even say anything. And like I was like, oh my God, like what can I say as an excuse of like why I completely invited him and like came into town for 5 days and he was like nowhere on my radar. Like I feel awful about that. Like what I'm like, I could say this, immediately went to, I could tell him that the event sold out. You know why? Because it did sell out originally and then they changed the venue. Like could he have come to the venue that it was at? Absolutely. That did not sell out. But I was trying to talk myself into saying it sold out so I couldn't bring you with me because I was afraid to tell the truth and say, I forgot. And I am like, I'm sorry. And so I'm like, Cindy, what am I like? What would you do? Like, what am I supposed to say? And she was like, why don't you just tell him the truth? And I was like, I mean, like that I just forgot, like, I didn't want to hurt his feelings. It was all about, you know, how is this other person going to feel? And why is my throat always an issue when I go to do Reiki, when I'm doing like a Reiki dancing thing, like my throat is always a problem. And it's because like, I'm not speaking my truth, even in the smallest circumstances, but that power that it takes away from me, you know, like that's why I really, like I said, Casey, and like any of you guys, like if you're like something in power versus force, like it was all of this is so much about power, the power of.
Anytime that we're not telling the truth, I believe that there is an act of guilt that will be felt by people unless you're a psychopath and you don't feel things, right? Yeah. Like I believe, I know for me, it is guilt if I have not been truthful. And with that being like guilt and shame being your lowest vibrations, you know, I mean, just to think about that, but that does definitely, I mean, when you think about guilt, so, you know, truth, there was, what was that post? It was like, it's easier to, I think Morgan showed it to me, or one of you guys said, just, it's easier to tell the truth and try to remember the lie and come up with the other one or whatever. It's like, just tell it, even if it's going to hurt, like, it's not your problem that it hurts somebody's feelings if you forgot something. And I think about things that people have apologized for me for, so I'm like, dude, that wasn't even in my realm of thought. Like, it's so we're even making up all these stories and then why we need to tell this little white lie or something because we don't want to hurt somebody else, when in reality it just all has to do with our own shit anyway. So it's like, then we're gonna feel guilty, then it's, oh my God, I still feel bad, and then we're vibing low. So, you know, the truth, that's what I say, the truth will set you free, you know, liberate you.
And he, you know, he responded back and said, it's all good, gorgeous.
Right.
Well, that was easy. Like I didn't have to come up with any, you know, like I was feeling so bad about it and like not wanting to hurt his feelings. And, you know, Carolyn Meese too, she says like, why are we so afraid of our own power? Like we, you know, I think Casey, we were talking about this in her workshop where she said, people come to my workshops looking for intuitive, you know, answers. But we're afraid to hear what we're supposed to go do. Like we're afraid to step in to that power. It's like, you know, and so we do all these zigzags and lies and untruths and like dancing around stuff, like rather than just standing up and like moving through it. John, what do you think? I'm looking at you. I just think you have something to say.
Okay, so for me, yeah, I've done that as well. I think most people have been guilty of not wanting. For me, it's more, well, the story that I tell myself is I don't want to disappoint the person, and that's one of my one of my things, one of my stories that I tell myself, that, you know, the person will be disappointed and da da da, and I think that it's, you were talking about before about like language, what the power of the language you use, and just hanging around Casey when I was over in the States in September. It was, and even before then, was the word of I deserve, and you know, I think that that really ties in with holding yourself to a higher standard, and I think it's not so much the words you say out loud, but it's the words that you say to yourself, and they're like this under the radar. It's kind of like in your subconscious, and that's why I think like the programs, the audio programs that do like mind conditioning, really help because we just don't have that awareness. We don't have that cognitive awareness a lot of the time. Meditation practice helps. The breathing helps, and also taking a chance. I think daring to dream, daring to have a big goal and going after it, it'll bring up a lot of the stuff. It'll bring up a lot of the unconscious stuff. And in the process, we have to be a bigger version of ourselves anyway, to fulfill the goal, the dream, whatever it may be. And in the process, it'll bring up the fears, it'll bring up the negative mindset, the negative mind chatter, or whatever that was holding us back, but it was under the surface of the water. We couldn't see it until we went for the big goal. And that's one of the things that Jack Canfield talks about in the film. It is actually going, he gave an example of him going for the books. So he's sold, I don't know how many books, but I think it's like 500 million books. 500 million books? 500 million books. So it's the most that any human being sold in history. And he was saying that goal brought up a lot of things that were just underneath the surface that he had no awareness about whatsoever. He was then able to process them. And once you move through that, then it's through our action that we overcome it. All the theory and stuff is great, but we actually learn and reprogram mostly by doing, by saying. If it's a new phrase or something like that, we actually need to say it. We need to demonstrate it and then take action and so on and so forth. And I thought that was a really good example from Jack about going after things. And then, being truthful and speaking truthful and not telling little white lies. It's very hard to be dishonest when if you've got someone keeping you accountable and you're going for something like big audacious goals, because the driver, the desire to actually have this thing that you're going for becomes greater. And I think it becomes easier to let go of the white lies and so on and so forth. As far as goals in intimate relationships, I find it very difficult. And it's not so much that I'm wanting to be dishonest. It's just that I'm finding it hard to really be true for myself. And I had an interesting experience the other evening where I had this interaction with this girl, and she's quite attractive. And I was like, wow, and she's smart. She's very good looking, and she's an entrepreneur. And so it's definitely like a match, and it was an attraction there. What I found was that I just felt like a little bit intimidated, and it was like so under the radar. And it was just like a sneaky little thing. And I found myself unconsciously self-sabotaging any further interaction with her, because I felt the connection, and that strong connection really scared me. And there was that fear that was leading to these unconscious behaviors that were actually sabotaging the connection. And and it was just interesting the way the patterns, it's like a defense mechanism, right? So the patterns that I would do to actually sabotage that. And I just recognized wow, this isn't the first time I've done this. And having that honesty, and that's hard to do because it's uncomfortable, and you've got to feel those uncomfortable emotions. And I think feeling, breathing, all the different practices that all these thought leaders talk about, they're connected. And if you can have a good practice where you're committed, daily, then one forms, if it's reading, if it's doing audio programs, mind conditioning, those sort of things, I think it's really, really, really helpful. And that's why I love going in Casey's place. And then you've got Chris and Chris's different rooms in the house. It's matched to the chakras, and it's an embodiment. And so, that's what I have to share on the topic.
Anybody else have anything to interject at this point? All right. So another thing that came up for me that I wanted to get your feedback on is this idea of, so then, I'm kind of like going in this direction of power and, and truth and speaking your truth. And so it's this like, visualization of like, hey, you're stepping into your power. And then Carolyn Meese comes in and kind of like smacks us in the face with this idea of choice. But then she relates it to will, like our will versus God's will, and surrender. And so then it's almost like, well, wait a second. We were moving into our power, and then it's like, skirt, we got to stop now, because like, where do we actually get that power? Because now, like in this chakra, we have the power of choice, all these choices that we're able to make, one way or another. And being able, just like the ability to be empowered to make those choices, for ourselves, gives us power. But then she talks about the power that comes through surrender of, is this a choice according to like what I want for my life? Or, she says, not, uses scripture like, not my will, but thine be done. So like, did that throw you guys off at all? Like, do you feel like there's kind of an obvious way to look at it? Because I was like, I feel like it's kind of contrary a little bit.
How you interpret it. And Dave MacArthur, I remember, used to say, God's will be done is the most thrown around like term and really ignorant thing that anybody can do, meaning ignorant, not like an idiot, but, just ignorant being not knowing. But, God's will be done, because we all have free will. All right. So even if it's God's will be done, you have free will. But when I think of surrendering to that, I say, am I surrendering to my higher self, or am I letting ego? Is this ego driven? So when it's, I look at it as God's will, my highest will, for my highest self, for me to be happiness and not be an ego, and not be so focused on that. So when I hear thine will or God's will be done, it's my highest self of my will be done, which is what is good for me, which is what is good for humanity. But yeah, I don't look at it all like there's this power, there's this force out there that has my destiny, like pre-planned. I think that is what choice is and free will. So I've never, ever since I heard Dave MacArthur say, like, that's just totally tossed around and people use it as a crutch. Oh, well, it's God's will for me to be broke. It's God's will for me to be unhappy. It's God's will for me to always have to be the martyr. It's God's will that I have to take care of everybody. So people are using it as a crutch and not as what the gift that it truly is of your free will and for your higher self. And surrender to that, not to your ego. That's how I look at it.
So I dealt with that whole thought process, like, I don't know, a while back. And I had a lot of questions, and I asked some different people. This was years ago. And one of my biggest questions was, if I am to align my life with God's will, or if God's will is to be done in my life, then what does it even matter? Like, if I do this and if I do that, if it's already, so that was my question. And I got some different answers. But the one that was the most simple and that I loved the most was the surrender comes in knowing that there is a power greater than you. And that is the surrender, knowing that you are not the end all, you are not the end all, be all, So the surrender comes in, bringing yourself before this power that is greater than yourself. And you can gain power from that source, whatever that source is for you. The will part, the God's will part, the way it was said to me was, I don't think God really cares what you do, as long as it is in alignment with the goodness around you. Like, as long as it is in alignment with good for the world. So he doesn't care what job you take. He doesn't care, it was like, I don't think that God has a certain plan, and if you don't follow it, you're doomed. And that's what confused me before. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that was definitely something that I dealt with a while back.
What's your perception of God with regard to separateness, or that kind of like a la, Neville God, is it Neville Goddard? That's like, I am, like, we are God, like that we have, like, we're just, these human selves, lowly selves, like on this earth. But like, when it comes down to it, like when I think of thy will be done, like if I am God, like what, what I mean? Like that changes things for me versus like when you say like coming to a power that's greater than myself. And I'm like, well, am I not like from that same power?
I believe that, but I mean, like we probably all have different beliefs, but I do believe that there is a power that is greater than me. Like that, I believe that God lives within me. I am perfectly fine with saying I am that. I am God. I am that. I understand that, but I also believe that when I get on my knees every morning, I'm not talking to myself. And when I thank it every night, there's a source much more perfect than my energy and my spirit. I don't try to define it, but I know that it's there. The best way I can describe it is pure love. And if, and I am not pure love. It is I strive to be, but I am not. Yet. So that's my belief, but I'm not imposing that on anyone here.
Well, and I was maybe like, I agree, like that my ego self is absolutely 1 gajillion% not pure love, but like, is our spirit self pure love? I mean, isn't that what we're striving for enlightenment to get to? And I was like, maybe we're skipping to the crown chakra right now. I don't know, but like, I know it's a little off of the throat topic, but it helps for me to know kind of like where we're coming from, with different perspectives, like between like what is our is our higher self pure love, like in the same vein as God?
It comes down to what your belief system is. Like, I believe that like my higher self and my spirit that is directly connected to source without separation is the pure divine love. And it's almost like, so anything that takes me away from that would be that confession moment to bring it back, acknowledge that I left and bring it back. Yeah, I definitely believe, that that's pure. But just like how I think, okay, we come from, our mom and our dad physically, and how it's not necessarily that that I'm better than God or God better than me, or whatnot, because, I don't think I'm my mom, I'm better than my mom, or I'm better than my dad, or, whatnot. It's physical, but I still think, that there was source first that did create, and we are in the image. So I definitely, felt there's an outer, that it's not just, but I do. I think it just goes back to your belief system, and I think all probably belief systems are accurate if that's what works for somebody. I think it all takes us back to the same place. But just like how they say, there's fear and there's love. Those are like the two true emotions: is fear and love, and everything in between. So kind of like the opposite of the pendulum, the different rhythm. And there's fear, and even she talked a lot about in the book about things being fear driven or acting out of fear, when making choices and with that willpower. And then, and then think about, okay, well, how can I get that back to love? And, Wayne Dyer, he says it too, if you have a choice to be kind or be right, choose kind. So it's like saying you're choosing love. So, and then really looking at, if I look at the 7 deadly fears and we're thinking about making choices out of fear, this came from Brimhall. Failing, not making a living, loss of a loved one, rejection of self or others, illness or disease, breaking authority rules, not being smart, not being good enough. Like, those are the 7 deadly fears. And so, thinking people are making choices often to avoid a fear, even if it's not to choose love, it's just out of pain and out of avoidance. But, at the end, I think if we're eternal spirits and beings, the choices that we're making are always right. It's like you can't make a wrong one. because there's a lesson that comes from it, and your soul is experiencing it for a reason. And so it's, I don't know, but I think it's definitely to another source. But again, it's all going to be for whatever somebody's belief patterns are. But love or fear, those are the two opposite ends. With striving more for love and working with my higher self that is connected to direct source. Not this.
Casey, I liked what you just said about like, no matter what you do, like a decision that you make, kind of what I thought about it, it's never wrong. Because I look back at some decisions that I've made in my life and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I ever do that? Why did I ever do that? That's such a terrible thing for me to do. But then at the same time, I look at it and I'm like, I'm a better person for it. It changed my situation in a way that, yeah, was negative at the time, but then fast forward to a positive. And it's like, if you think about it that way in making a decision process, I think then you can be easier on yourself as well. Because I know I'm really, really hard on myself. So any kind of decisions that I make, if I think that it was a bad one, I'm going to ultimately then like harp on myself about it. But if I then truly think that, well, this decision I made, whether it was not a good one at the time, is going to lead me to either making better decisions the next time or like putting me into the place that I'm really supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Well said, well said.
Did anybody come up with some ahas, or like was a flashlight shined on, like if you did the homework, like actually going into confession and identifying like maybe what people or in what circumstances in your life you allow your spirit to leave you, and like really need to call it back, and through that confession basically just kind of admit that it's like this is, I'm basically confessing that this is an area, or this is a situation where I allowed my spirit to take over, that where I didn't have authority or power over my spirit. And maybe that's an area that tends to happen over and over again. There was something, on page 228, when she was talking about negative choices, and we talk all the time about how like we're going to keep, like situations are going to keep coming around until we learn the lesson, right? Like they're just going to keep on coming back. And she says negative choices generate situations that recur in order to teach us how to make a positive choice. Back to that idea that, until we learn the lesson, we're going to continue to make these choices that bring that same thing back. And like generally, those are what cause those situations, or, people maybe, I don't know, is what causes our spirit to leave us and we lose our power. So in order to move past that and start to step into our full power, that negative circumstance or these negative conditions, these choices that we're making have to come to a halt at some point. Like we have to get to that point where we're making the positive choice in that situation rather than the negative one, like for the 100th time. So did anything come up for you guys with regard to like, man, here was that one again, today or yesterday, or here's one that I feel like comes up all the time, that it's like, at what point am I gonna decide and make the choice to learn the lesson and make the positive choice and not the negative one that allows my spirit to kind of get away from me?
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
It's like always choosing something to check out with. No matter what's going on in life, and like with Morgan talking the other day too, on the call to live fully, where it was like, no matter what it is, be it if it's food, if it's alcohol, if it's pills, if it's, the relationship, the feelings, the negative self-talk, but just letting yourself fall in to just those destructive patterns that you just keep allowing, even though you're totally aware of them, totally aware that's happening, and you're like, fuck it, I don't care, I'm going through it. And but yeah, and then just really getting it is, and just like realizing the how lack of honesty with yourself that's there. But I really do, I mean, because this, when I was reading that on 228, I thought a lot about soul contracts. You know, like the Steve thought, I mean, it was just an immediate, like, oh, like, I feel like I'm reading the soul contract here with the karmic lessons. But it is, it's once we learn the lesson to make the positive choice, the situation does not have to happen again. And that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think that there's any wrong choice or bad choices, because it's like, it has to keep showing up. We have to keep going through it. And God bless us, keep going through it this lifetime so we can finally get it, so we don't have to keep going through it over and over and over again for eternity. But yeah, that was just a huge thing for me, just always choosing, you know, just to get into something to then distort or deviate from the actual thing that needs to be paid attention to. You know, even, or like almost like the disease of procrastination. To keep putting something off and then just getting involved into something else, be it if it's a healthy habit, bad habit, addiction of some sort. But that's what I was sharing with Cindy earlier.
For me, I think that, like, I guess the question that we were really asking ourselves was what we like to ourselves the most about. And one thing that I do is I tend to,
Your confession.
my confession, I tend to, there's a reel in my head that goes over and over, and it's like I'm unaware of it. So I'm sure that that's the 96% of subconscious. But I mean, you know, like there's this reel that goes over where I see a life that involves someone else to change drastically. And so somewhere in my thinking, I lie to myself through that like constant like fantasy that I have some control, you know, that over someone else changing. And I've even studied like crazy, probably about 2.5, 3 years ago, and sought out other people to find out what I could do on a level of vibration, on a level of attraction. It's crazy. But I mean, that's the lie I tell myself. And I don't know that I'm even aware of it. It's like I just keep playing the tape so that I can believe something that is not true.
You know, in addition to full contracts that, you know, came up for me too during these pages 228, 229, 230, when she starts talking about addictions and how everybody is addicted to something. It might be drugs, it might be alcohol, it might be procrastination. Like there's all, you know, it can be anything that we're addicted to.
Change. I said, and it can change.
Yeah. And when she says the only way to break these addictive patterns is to unite the power of the mind and the heart. And then she says one strong choice, like all it takes is making one strong choice that is aimed at tomorrow and not yesterday. And when I read that, I thought about the book that I just finished, The Untrue Story of You, that talks, you know, primarily about our past time body, our present time body, and our potential, which is obviously our enlightened, you know, higher self. And so this one strong choice that we can make to break the pattern has to be focused on our potential or our future self and not on the past, not yesterday. And it's like, when I think about like, okay, the over and over things, it's like we're making that negative choice over and over because we're allowing ourselves to go back to yesterday, right? Like the imprints, the soul contracts, the things that have that the stories that we've created based on experience that stay, it's because of the past that we're allowing to come into the present. But if we're making this one strong choice that's focused on tomorrow and not yesterday, then we can start to break these addictive patterns. And I thought about Morgan too, like with, you know, like what has happened in the past couple of months that she's like, something just clicked. Like I'm like focused now on like what I'm here to do. And it's a struggle to not get pulled back into the past and the negative patterns that are of yesterday.
Something that's always been said, and we were talking about this earlier, whenever I start to get on track and I start losing weight, something always happens to me. Like with her ankle and her knee, and like same scar, same injury, like literally the exact same fucking injury, like when we were there. So it's just like, you know, same thing as far as like back issues for the last 10 years. You know, it's just, but just being aware of that and then saying, well, wait, we just said though, I always have a back issue, or something always happens to me. It's like, that's the creation part. And even if you're not saying it, but you're feeling it, like what John was saying, it's that underneath, that hidden part. It's like, you know, feeling is the secret. So even if we're not saying it out loud, but that's what we're thinking, thoughts are physical things, you know, being expressed. I mean, and so it's just like, well, damn, this is the last time. I've learned my lesson. Like, it ain't happening again. I'm serious about that. So yeah, it's just, I'm finding lasting peace.
And she calls the situations illusions. You know, like that, even it's like, it's the stuff that we created that we're doing, the over and over negative choices are for illusions. Right. It's the stuff that we've created that isn't real anyway. So it's like, I don't know, for me, it was like kind of maddening, you know, like where you're like, like how in the world am I doing this over and over? Like just stressing about it in the same situation. And like, and it's a story.
It's funny because like we're talking about that, all of this, and like I pick fights, and not with people, just my husband, and sometimes my mother, but usually just Andrew. And I pick fights so bad, and I like can't help it. I don't know why. And so I'm thinking of it and how like thinking about towards tomorrow instead of thinking about, okay, what has happened in my past and this is why I'm upset. And like, that's always my excuse. Well, this has happened before to me, so that's why I'm mad now. Like, it's an illusion. I literally will create this illusion, this story, this like thing to be mad at, pick a fight about, because I will think about the past and not about our future or our present and our future tomorrow. Like, it's huge. And if I can start thinking about it like that, maybe and we don't fight all the time, but like I'm one of those people that just like will pick, and it's a problem, and I keep trying to work on it. I'm in the process of not picking fights.
Great process to be.
My brother once told me, 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, and you shit all over today.
Want to say that again?
1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, and you shit all over today.
Shitting all over yourself.
All right, I want to move to faith. So there was quite a bit of info with, you know, Carolyn, where she says the essence of the fifth chakra is faith. And typically when we talk about faith, it's always about the things hoped for, right? So like Hebrews 11, I just looked it up, it's like 11:1, I think, that faith is the evidence or the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things like not seen. So it's like we hope for, like we can't see it, we don't have proof, but we just have this faith that something is going to come to pass. But what really got me is that I always relate that to something positive. And it's like she talked about having faith in our fears. And, you know, Casey, I learned from you, it's like 1% doubt equals 0% faith. When you think about, like, we put faith in these negative choices, in things that we're afraid of, and in fearing you know, coming into our full power, you know, of ourselves. It's like we have as much faith in the negative as, or well, more so, you know, than we should have about the positive of these positive choices or changes that we can make to start breaking these patterns. And she says what motivates us to make the choices that we do, the spiritual test inherent in all our lives is the challenge to discover what motivates us to make the choices we do, and whether we have faith in our fears or the divine. So it's like, which one is it? Like, are we putting faith in the things that we're afraid of, like for the gajillionth day in a row, or do we have faith in the divine? Did anything come up for you guys about faith and kind of how much faith we put in fears and?
Oh yeah, I thought exactly, you know, 1% doubt, 0% faith, and I think that all the things that, you know, that do creep in, that does give that. And there's certain things that, like, I'm so certain on, and that are happening, that do keep showing up again. And it's like, no matter what I do, it keeps showing up, and it's a positive. But with other things, there's still that doubt, there's still that fear. But what if I have to live with this forever? But what if? And it's the things that are still perpetuating and manifesting. And it's maddening that you know what you know. You ain't changing it.
Yeah.
Because there's no proof in it, right? Like you can't prove that the fear is actually going to come to pass, and we have faith in it all day long. What if equals I have faith that what if is going to happen. Why? Like, what does it take? What motivates us to shift that faith into the divine instead of into fear? Like, I don't know, it was gigantic for me.
It's like practice. It's like practice over and over and over again. I haven't meditated in, like, I don't know, probably like 2 weeks. And I've been the most anxious person this week. And it's because I stopped practicing. I stopped practicing those mindsets. So this entire week I've been like a hot mess. And my throat I woke up with my throat swollen this morning after I took my bath with lavender last night. And I was like, gosh, is this all happening for a reason right now?
I think that, like, what you were talking about too, for me, it has to do with the, like what I was talking about early, like the reel that just keeps going in that story. So that story that may be fear-based, always has to do, for me, or typically has to do with, like, unworthiness. So there's a story that's reeling through my head, and it's like I'll play the tape all the way through. So then at that point I have a choice. And like what John was saying, my choice is either to give into that or take action otherwise. And I think that the growth comes from taking action and lightning not striking you, and realizing, you know what, I am worthy. And even if it's just that realization for, like, the, you know, a day or 2 days or even 10 minutes, it's like it's reinforcing that subconscious that makes me feel more worthy to take more action. And it's just that cycle that happens for me. But I have those stories, and, like, that's how it works for me. The fear is not like I'm afraid of rejection. The fear is when I'm faced with something and I play the tape based on my subconscious, and that, you know, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I'm crazy. They're not gonna like me. They're gonna da 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 da. And then I say, fuck that, and I do whatever I have to do anyway, and then they don't. So it's that reinforcement for me. So it's not that I'm like, I think that faith, a lot of times faith comes not only in believing what you can't see, but taking action in what you don't know.
That was kind of deep.
What?
That was kind of deep. I'm like, I like you said, taking action on what you don't know. Like that, I mean, that is like your
Action
like
pushes
moving,
down,
but
fear, and doubt.
like Dooley was like, it's like move in the general direction. Like you don't have to know exactly what it is. Like the how, the ultimate out, you have the outcome, but you have to move in the general direction. And then that faith of allowing and knowing that something positive like is working in your favor because you're moving in this general direction of the outcome that you desire versus the million reasons why you shouldn't.
Well, that's too, you know, action pushes down fear and doubt. And what is fear? The opposite of love, right? Loving ourselves, being worthy, being deserving, whatever. And then two, doubt, opposite of faith. So, you know, action pushes down and doubt. Like I've heard that over and over and over again from people. Fear and doubt. So just basically get into, and I think action, you know, within David Gagani talks about action being the last step in the creation process. Like the very last step in creating anything is action. So I think, you know, creating it first, feeling it first, seeing it first, and then moving, like you said, moving in the general direction. Maybe moving in the general direction is taking action of just sitting and meditating. And that's your action. And visualization, vision board, like that's your action for it. You know, I mean, that's just as much part of the creation process. You know, because I forever say you're not gonna, you know, build a house like without a blueprint. When I'm talking to team members, I'm like, why are you doing that with your business? Like, why, do you have a blueprint? Do you know what your business looks like? Do you know what your team members look like? Do you know how successful you are? Like, do you know what kind of leaders are coming into your business? Like, why don't you have a blueprint for that? You know, even though it's like we can get into all that action to go out prospecting, presenting, da 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 da, but it's still, you know, it's creating it first and believing it, seeing it, speaking it out there, having that, you know, telling the world, telling people like, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going, and like creating it, you know? And then action will push down to me that doubt and fear that we have. That's what I was thinking when she was saying that.
I think my biggest struggle is the blueprint part. Once I get to the action part, I'm like, full speed ahead. It's like the blueprint of like taking me going, yeah, I need to do that. Yep, that's what I need to do. And then it's like, okay, how am I going to do that? And like building that blueprint is the hardest thing for me.
Dawn, talk a little bit on that, like with like your creation process and just your will, and then like you've been speaking your books into existence. I mean, you're doing this documentary, you couldn't read and write, you know, for the first part of your life, and then now, you know, you're doing all these best-selling books. Like, what was your process of creating that first, and then kind of using your will and speaking it?
That's a big question. How to break that down? It's How long do I have? I mean, that's a huge topic, and it's obviously it's a process, and it's a step-by-step process. I think that for me, in my situation, it was something that was innate in me. So. I think that not having that voice or that willingness to express in the early years of my life has really paid dividends now. And I think it relates back to, I can't remember who was saying it, but that, you know, it really comes down to choices, and there is no like right or wrong choices. It's really just a set of choices. And sometimes we make a choice and the immediate feedback that we get is that it is the right choice. And then later on down the track, it's like, well, actually that choice didn't turn out so well. And vice versa. You know, a choice initially, you know, it may appear, the feedback may appear as an adversity. So we process that, oh, this is, you know, a bad thing that we experience. And then later on down the track, it turns out to be the best thing that ever happened. And, you know, you speak to anyone that's been through any major traumatic adversity and they've been successful, they've been able to use that adversity because it's a strong energy. And I think that when you can transform that energy, it can propel you forward into action. And I think it relates to a lot of different things that a lot of different books and motivational and spiritual teachers talk about, is having that strong vision, that why, you know, having a vision board, getting that clarity about what you want, for me, it was just so innate. I mean, those experiences of shame, fear, doubt, unworthiness around learning, reading, and writing is really that drives me. It drives me, and there's a lot of work, and it's confronting to write, to collaborate, to get people to come on board, and then to compile and put the book together, to go through the editing process, to formatting. It really, it's a lot. But for me, having that driver, those experiences, those adversities in the early years, it's just something that I kind of have to do. I don't really know how to actually articulate it and put it into words. One of the things that I like about jumping on this call with all y'all is that you're able to actually share and articulate how you're feeling, all this. And I'm like, whoa, I'm really not sure how I'm feeling right in this moment. And so I'm impressed the way that y'all do that. And I'm certainly kind of not there yet. But I know as far as like creating, it's just something in me. There's just this driving force that I need to express it. And I think that just comes from it being suppressed for so long. And, you know, I've also done a lot of the work as well. And that's why I'm impressed with anyone that I've met through Casey is that they do the work. You know, you read, you do audios and things like that. And I think that makes a difference. And putting yourself in, I think it just came to a point where I was just really sick and tired the way I was feeling. You know, I think it was around about 2008. I'd been through a major relationship breakup. It didn't end very well at all. And it just left me feeling lost. And a lot of different feelings that I was suppressing, maybe through that relationship, really came to the forefront. And it was just a lot of different things that I was exposed to, and meditation and having experiences with angels through crystals. Really just started to open me up to a broader spectrum of emotions. And I think that someone was alluding to before that, I think it was Chris, that why are we so afraid of our power, you know? And I was more afraid of my potential than I was of the darkness that I'd experienced or created or whichever way you want to look at. And the more and more that I actually just stretched myself and went to healers and explored those different parts. You know, at first it was the darkness, but then it was the light, and I found myself more afraid of the light, more afraid of the potential. And then doing group coaching, getting a group of people, and that really just enabled me to process my own stuff, because I just had so much stuff that I needed to flush. And before I could get to that blank canvas, before I could actually start thinking about the books, and it took a long time. I think it's been about 7 years. I've just like really working on myself to a point now that I feel like I'm in the zone of creation where I can create things and stuff like that. So obviously it's different for everyone, but just going on that journey. It is a journey. I remember the initial stages of working with the first one-on-one healer, and it was one of the most frightening things that I had done was actually to go and seek help. And so I can't do this on my own. And I think that, I don't know if that's a guy thing or a human being thing, but it was really difficult for me to actually say, I need support with this. What I'm going through is I can't handle it on my own. And that was one of the best things I could have done. And I'm still in touch with that healer today, and she's gone on to do amazing things, which is super cool. And she's an animal intuitive, and she's just really connected. Her strength is very esoterical, you know, the sixth sense, the intuition, that sort of thing. She's a Reiki master, kinesiologist, animal communicator, spirit guide, all that sort of thing. And so yeah, that's so with creation, it's definitely taking the action. I think what Cindy was saying and what Casey was saying is taking action is. I think there's a step before that. I think it's definitely getting clear on your vision boarding, having the affirmations, and doing the mindset. I think it's all connected. And then I still, you know, even though I still sometimes I distract myself and having faith in procrastination is a big one for me. And even I'll get stuff done, but I'm pushing. And I think that, when you push yourself, it gets uncomfortable. But I think that that's a good zone to be. That's good, because on the other side of that is a new expansion, a new awareness, a new creation. And that's going to help someone. And I think when you tap into that, your why and your vision, that it's not just about you, that it's something so much bigger than you could probably ever really imagine. And I have faith in that.
When you think about, like, you've been talking about choice, positive choices, negative choices, and why do we do this? Go through this thing, and I'm excited for Jen to come next week with Third Eye. That really, hopefully we'll be talking about this intuition, where like it's really not that hard to make the right choice if we're listening and we're, able to be making that connection with, with God, source, that really is there to lead us, as far as our choices are concerned, that it should be something, that we don't even have to consider, there's the positives and there's the negatives. It's like, no, I just received it, and, it's time to go, and you feel good about it. So I'm excited for her to come next week. And one thing, so we're coming up on there's only 3 more minutes, and I wanted to read something really quick. There's probably there might be another minute or 2 left, and if people want to stay on, I'm good with that too. But so as I was studying today, and all these different downloads were jumped off. These different downloads were coming to me. There was something in particular that I was looking to pull back from this Isis Oracle card deck. So I had been pulling cards from this deck, and I thought that there was something, and this is probably more like Third Eye ish right now, that there was something that I needed. I was like, there's this, I think I read something that's really going to fit well. And I had asked Morgan, I said, screenshot me these 2 particular, what the book says about these 2 cards. I can't remember which one it was in, but it was one of those 2. And she screenshotted it, and I hadn't even had a chance to look at which one of those it was. I hadn't read anything. I got the screenshot, but I hadn't read it yet. And then she walked outside, and she threw the book and said, here's the book. Just go ahead and find it. You can sort through it. So I opened the book, getting ready to flip to the 2 that I thought that I was looking for. And it came to this one. And so I just wanted to read this, because it literally opened right to it. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we're talking about tonight. But I wanted to just end the call with this, or at least get it in before everybody jumps off. So where I opened it to says, stay true and be in your power. And the picture on the card is of Osiris and Isis, and it says, Lord and Lady of Divine Authority. So just listen to what it has to say. And it's just a couple of pages. You are a sovereign divine being with spiritual authority and freedom within you. You do not need permission from anyone to be who you are and live your life as you so choose. This is your divine birthright. Guard it as the precious treasure that it is, and remember that you are a divine being. The flail and the crook, often held by Osiris, are symbols of divine royalty and dominion. These symbols remind us that within we hold great dominion, spiritual authority, and freedom to be the sovereign ruler of our own self. This does not mean that we have to control life or others or even the environment around us, but it does give us complete and utter choice to become as spiritually awake, free, and self-determined as we wish to be, as well as providing us with complete choice as to what our values and actions will be this lifetime. There's no permission required from anyone apart from yourself to be and live your truth. There are many voices that will test you on the journey from illusory shackles of fear, loss, or abandonment that may hold you back or tempt you into giving your power away to others. You shall awaken from the testing into the realization of spiritual independence within. Of course, there is more to spiritual authority than just recognizing that it lies within you. There are times when you must act on it, guard it, and protect it, which means recognizing when others seek to exert influence over you for their own reasons, or when you are being manipulated out of your own authority, like spirit leaving your body, becoming blind to your own power of choice, instead believing that things just are the way that they are and that you cannot question or query. Sometimes during such challenges, to wield the crook and the flail, to exert one's own spiritual authority requires that you stand your ground and remain true to your knowing. Speaking truth, right? This is not about achieving a certain outcome or attempting to control something or someone, or even forcing things to be as you wish they could be. Standing your ground means always telling yourself the truth and not selling out or giving away something that has genuine spiritual truth and meaning for you. It's not about making another see things the same way. It's about honoring your own truth. And if your truth is wise enough to include compassion, which was that Hebrew word that Carolyn Meese brought up, hesed, then honoring the other, even when the other disagrees with you, like being non-judgmental, which was Gibora, I think was the word, or seeks to harm you out of their own fear. You do not have to challenge another in order to honor your truths and your inner authority. If you feel that another has to agree with you in order for your authority to be intact, then it isn't genuine inner authority at all. The fact that you don't need to have agreement of others in order to live an empowered life can be a liberating realization. All right, this is the last of it. You have the power to create and own your reality, and you don't need permission from anyone else to do this. Honor your spiritual sovereignty. Let the Lady Isis help you find your spiritual authority and freedom of choice now. So I just thought that was cool, that whole thing, when I was looking for something else, opened right to this about stay true and be in your power.
I like it. I'm gonna chime in real quick. As we were sitting here, then like the last 5 minutes, I decided to give myself something to do every day for at least the next 21 days. And just the thinking of I deserve, I'm going to write down, which I already started, every day certain things, even if it's the same thing from the day before. I'm one of those people, if I don't continue to do it, I don't learn it, I don't remember it. So I'm one of those, I have to repeat, and I get better at it. So I think that's my goal. Every day I want to write these things down, whether it be the same as the day before and the day before and the day before that, but at least I'm doing it. And then it's my practice. Then it's my belief. So just want to share that with you guys.
John, I know you do a lot of meditation, and it's like, when we think about like all of these affirmations and how much is in the subconscious with the tape that we replay all the time of the negative choices, and how to break that pattern, is really speaking these new things and having faith in something new and not the old stuff. Like, how much time do you spend in an average day just in quiet meditation, positive affirmation? You talked about like these mindset programs. I mean, after studying the throat, I feel like we should be spending like 8 hours a day in affirmations, like to reprogram, you know what I mean? Like, for life to truly be different, like what has your experience been with that?
Well, I do mindset almost every day. Meditation definitely every day. I track and measure it with Insight Timer, and so I know exactly because I think that sometimes we can just I don't know, we don't remember things sometimes. So we do so much in one typical day that, oh yeah, I did that, I must have done that. But that was like a day before. And it's like, we can get confused. And it's not like we're trying to be dishonest or anything, but it's just that we have so much going on and there's only so much information that we can actually digest, recall, remember, that sort of thing. So having this app actually tells me exactly, I got like a little chart. I don't know if you can see it, but it tells me exactly. So yesterday I meditated for time during the day. It was 40 minutes yesterday I did a total, and it was 2 sessions. So I did 2 sessions. So I know exactly. Water, I drank 3 liters of water yesterday because I got the 2 empty bottles next to my desk. So I know. I went for a walk in the afternoon and caught up with a friend. So I know there's the 3 things. So I just have a daily 5. The mindset thing, yeah, I listened to it before I went to bed. I fell asleep to it. And so that's how I actually tick it off, and I just do a checklist and I track and measure. We do that in the successful businesses, and I think that it's important to do that in our personal life, to have a successful personal life as well. Especially if you want to create, you want to do more, you want to be more. I think that life, there's this law of duality that, if we're not stretching ourselves sometimes, that, life is going to throw us curveballs and it's going to shake things up for us if we don't do it ourselves. And my dad was a perfect example of that. He went through, he just wanted a safe, secure, certain life. And he stayed in a career that he despised for a very, very long time, worked ridiculously long hours, so he didn't have to feel in relationships and friendships and whether in all different levels. And, he basically manifested Parkinson's illness. And the gift of that for him was that he was able to actually reflect on his life, to go within and actually process, well, how did he manifest this? And initially he felt like a victim, that this happened to him, that he had no control over it. And we had some deep conversations that, on some level, don't you know that you created this? And we explored that. It was an uncomfortable conversation. But yeah, I think that one of the reasons by stretching, by doing more and thinking of the greater good of others is that, we need to be a bigger person. We need to get uncomfortable. And we're in the flow of duality. And, we can't always have it one way. And if you actually aren't pushing yourself, if you aren't getting uncomfortable, then life's going to make you uncomfortable in some way. It's going to create a situation. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get fired. You're going to be like in this dilemma because we're in this cruise zone, and the universe just doesn't work that way. We're governed by duality, two-ness. And if you think you're always going to have it one way, think again. That's just not how the universe works. I mean, you just look at any given day. If you were to track your emotions, it's like this. It's up and down, up and down. It's not like a smooth sailing, a flat sea at all. In any given day, if you were to break it down and to actually monitor your emotions, it goes up and down. I think that to embrace that, to feel that, that's such a gift. I mean, there's nowhere else in the universe, and we've got satellites that have explored vast amounts of the universe. They haven't found the conditions you would find another planet called Earth, and it really is. I had a tough, difficult day yesterday, and seemingly I couldn't get internet anywhere I went, and I just wanted to get some stuff done. I just had to finally let go and that ain't happening today, and just to move on. I'm like, well, I just have to wait till tomorrow, because everything and the more and more I pushed, the more and more frustrated I got. And I had that don't quit mindset. So I'd go to this cafe. I wasn't working at home, so I went to this cafe, that cafe. And these places normally have amazing internet, but just I had this bubble, or just it ain't working for you today, buddy. So it was interesting, and just to acknowledge that, and to just to quit. I'm just not going to do that anymore. I'll come back to it tomorrow. It'll still be there. And I think the law of duality. If we're not stretching ourselves, the universe will create something to stretch us. We'll stir things up. Yeah. So that's my take. Yeah.
or else we'd never grow if it didn't.
Yeah, it's true.
At times it's like throws you into the, all right, well, I got to jump off this cliff now and see what happens. But it's like, if I would have never lost my job, I wouldn't be doing any of it. You know, it's like the gigantic changes in your life happen when you're just shaken to the core. And it's like, you know, it's like, it's now or never. Like, it can't get any more obvious than this. So.
Yeah, you've been like pushed out of the plane, and it's like the worst thing that could ever happen to you. But now it's like, that is the best thing that could happen to me, you know?
Yeah.
And we don't realize that at the time. It's not on our radar. Or
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
For coming. And unless anybody has any conflicts, I haven't heard of any so far, we'll plan on Jen Valadez bringing us Third Eye on Thursday.
Awesome.
That'll be
exciting.
fun.
Great.
Have a great day, John.
Yeah, we'll do.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.